Good day today. It's Dr. Prodigal coming to you with a thought that maybe may help you and change everything in your life. I'm just giving some thought to certain things that must happen. We as the body of Christ, we often say that we're operating under the guidance of God and that we have godly principles and all of that, but then we just don't do it. I'm fumbling with a microphone right now that I have like stuck all in my clothes and stuff. But now I really want to think that we do things out of ignorance instead of out of malice. But I'm speaking of the act of succession. We are to train our replacements because none of us will be here forever. And at any given time, we have to step away. So therefore, I'd like to think about succession as Jesus did. As soon as he was called into his ministry, as when he stepped out, he comes out of the water. God speaks and affirms him. This is my son, in whom I am well pleased. Now, there were 2 times that God spoke of Jesus and said those words, and the second time he added some words to him. This is my son in whom I am well pleased. Hear ye him. And we'll go through it at times on what happened on that mountain and how it ties in to our everyday life. So now we see Jesus, he comes out of the water. He has the affirmation of God and the Holy Spirit descending upon him in the form of a dove. So now, not only has he been qualified, he's also been affirmed, and he's also been equipped. But as soon as you're equipped, then he's driven right into the wilderness. Some say he was driven, some say he was led. Well, the word says both things. So sometimes you have to drive someone, and sometimes you have to lead them. Jesus made sure it was all covered. Now here we are in the wilderness. He now withstands everything. He's offered everything that there is to be offered. He's offered a shortcut. He's offered a way that he can get back some things without, dying for him. But yet it wasn't everything. The enemy said, I will give you all of this, but he didn't say he would give him all of that and us. And Jesus came to get us, not that. So that was something to think of. But as soon as he began to walk through, he began calling his replacements immediately. That's something we don't do in churches. When we get people to come into church, many times there's a power struggle. Someone may come in with a better gift than you in your eyes. Now I say in your eyes because in my eyes, all gifts are equal. Just like the body of Christ, all of us have different functions, different gifts. So what is it that we think that this gift is better than the next one? No, let's look at the body. The body has many members, and often sometimes the ones with the most despicable in our eyes members are the ones that's most needed, such as the anus. Yes, I'm going to go there. Everybody doesn't want to talk about that. They say it's the worst part on the body or whatever, but yet if that part does not function, the whole body dies of sepsis, and that may be what's happening right now. We're not planning for the succession of the body by ingesting something that we can grow from and get rid of the waste. Or either we don't want to get rid of nothing, we think it's all ours, and that little thing closes up, and now the body dies of sepsis. Each church is a copy of an organism. It's not an organization, it's an organism. And therefore, it must have things in order to live. So Jesus chooses his replacements right off the bat. Right off the bat, he goes through and he chooses them. And guess what? One of them was even a crook. So you can't write them out either, the ones that you think that are not worthy. You think Jesus knew that Judas was crooked? Yeah, Jesus knew that Judas was very crooked. But you also need a Judas to get to your destination and to your destiny. You need a Judas. You need to be betrayed. You need to be hurt. You need to be thrown out. Then, of course, there's Peter. Yes, let's talk about Peter. I don't know the man. I don't know him. Don't know nothing about him. And then cuss you out. Now, you just finished cutting some people. Now you want to cut some people out. You got anybody on your leadership team like that? Well, you need one. You need one because he's going to end up doing some things much more powerful than you ever thought that it could do. So Jesus chooses his replacements. He begins to pour into them. And he's frustrated at times because at one time he said, how long must I be with you? You ain't got it yet. Every time I tell a parable, I got to pull your aside and give you some special education on this because you didn't get the general class. So I got to give you remedial on this because you all are going to replace me. And I need you to understand as much as you can while I'm here. Yes, you're not going to learn everything here, but you're going to learn some things on the road. But I have to pour all I have into you right now so at least you can begin that journey. How many churches are doing that with their leadership? Now, we have one thing with the culture. Saying, oh, well, it ain't like it used to be. No, it's not. And when you guys say it wasn't like it used to be for the generation before. It has never been that way. There's always been a progression in the church to be relevant to society. When we refuse to grow and recognize that we all are progressive, and the Bible even tells us we're going from faith to faith and glory to glory. But no, we want to hold on to this faith and this glory. Okay, I hear you now talking. One Lord, one faith, one baptism. Yes, that one faith. But we get it revealed in levels. How about that? At one time, you didn't have the faith to much less watch the weather change. Now you have faith to raise the dead. How do I know you have faith to raise the dead? Because you get up every morning. When you lay down, you have the faith that God is going to raise you, so therefore the dead will be raised. Ha! Now, I don't care if you don't like me or whatever now, but we have to really look at this. As Jesus was training people, he began also to give them practical exercises. He sent them out 2 by 2. He had them come back in. He critiqued the experience. He asked, well, what happened? Well, we saw everything and the demons were fleeing. He said, look, rejoice that your name is written in the Lamb's book of life. And then he tells them, I saw Satan fall like lightning. So he's trying to tell them in a nice way, don't let your pride get in the way because, you can go up real quick in your pride and you can come down even quicker in the fall that follows the pride. So he's training them. He's getting them together. And in turn, he's doing the process of duplication where he was 1. Now he has 12 and they have other disciples. And I'm thinking we can look at what they call a multi-level. Yeah, okay, we have Jesus at the top. He is the top. But then he speaks to 12 and the 12 speaks to many and the many speak to even more. So guess what? There was 5,000 and then there was 70 and then there was 12. But then Jesus had 3 that he really poured into. Okay, now who are these 3? Let's look at them. I always say that Jesus had 3 thugs that were close to him. Peter was known to cut you and cuss you out. James and John, if something wasn't right, Peter was the quiet one in this one. James and John was saying, Lord, look, Jesus, you want us to call down lightning on them? Because they're over there doing it. They ready to handle some things because some people are in their minds stepping outside their boundaries. But Jesus had to tell them, no, I still have to work with you 3. So what does he do? He takes them to the Mount of Transfiguration and he's still pouring into them. He's pouring into all the disciples, but these you really began to hear about quite a bit, especially, after he's gone. He pours into these and these become more or less the foundational leadership of Christianity from the upper room on. So you got Peter, you got James, you got John. Jesus takes them to the Mount of Transfiguration. First, they just chilling. They ain't looking at nothing. Then Jesus gets transformed into who he is. Oh my gosh, a glorious body. He gives them a sneak preview. But then he has Moses and Elijah with him. He's still preparing them. So what do I say? John was the one that really, really, really loved Jesus. Peter was the one that had the faith. Now, James was the one that gave hope. Now, how do I say that? Well, we can look at Corinthians 13, 1 Corinthians 13 chapter. I dare not say 1 Corinthians or 2 Corinthians. People be clowning people with that, even though it's the same reference. But in 1 Corinthians 13 chapter speaks of love. And the three that are the best at the end: faith, hope, and charity, or love. And the greatest of these is love. So now, we're at this mountain. There's transfiguration, so Peter's trying to process something through knowledge and not necessarily faith. Faith would let him know, we're on a mountain, this doesn't happen. Something is beyond my understanding, so I have to have faith that God is going to show me what this is. Now, he's already had all of this. He's told him flesh and blood, has not revealed this to you, and Peter could say it, and then he turned right around and does something else. But so he's still working with him. Aren't you glad that Jesus didn't throw Peter away? Because that would have really squashed some things on the day of Pentecost and the first megachurch that was birthed. But he works with us. So Peter, being Peter, well, good. Time for us to make 3 tabernacles now, Lord, because we're going to keep this thing separate. You stay in your own house. And Jesus said, no, 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 no. So Moses was the one that produced the faith. Elijah was the one that produced the hope. Jesus produced the love. So when they looked up again, they only saw Jesus, because love of God encompasses your faith and your hope. So how do I attach that to his replacements? Well, he had 3. He definitely had 3. So Peter, he was the one of faith. Moses spoke to him. Elijah was the one that spoke to James. He was the hope. But Jesus spoke to John, because John was that one that loved him. And he laid his head on Christ's breast. He could hear his heartbeat. He could know. And you know what? Out of all of them, John was the only one that lived a long, productive life. He went through some things, but he's the only one that died a natural death. Why do I say that? There's times when your hope will be the first thing to go. Who was the first apostle that was martyred in the book of Acts? It was James. The hope. That was the first thing that was gone. And it was trying to get faith, which was Peter at that time. But Peter was released. Because you can't just cage faith up and kill it. Faith has to be given up. So they couldn't do that. They could try to take your hope, but they'll never take your faith. And guess what? Peter and John were sent out 2 by 2. So here you have them again in the book of Acts. They're walking together by the man he's crippled. Faith and love has to lift you up. And once you lift it up, now you have hope. Because now you're standing up through faith and through the love of God. So here we are. We see this. Faith, hope, and love. Peter, John, and James. Figure that out yourself. These are 3 things. The threefold cord is not easily broken. So anything that we have in life, there must be a threefold cord. Regardless, we ought to have a witness on earth, but we're supposed to have God that bonds us all in covenant. Now, let's go back to where we were about transition. Now that Jesus has revealed some things to these 3, now is time for them to look up again. And what did they say? They only see Jesus. So everything is all about him. It is. It's all about him. But what I really want you to understand is that the moment that God puts you in a place of authority, you're supposed to be identifying your replacement immediately. I've often told people, my job is not to keep you under me. My job is to preach and teach you into your own authority and from under me. I'm supposed to preach and teach myself out of a job. Would this be the same as your kids? Okay, and I'm not trying to be gross or rude or crude or anything with this, but you're not going to find a 30-year-old breastfeeding. And if you do, something's wrong. Yeah, you may, I realized and I've read and understood that a lot of Hebrew mothers breastfed their child until they were 5 years old. Even when I was in Germany, I looked and it kind of shocked me. This kid was talking, walking. I heard, and I spoke German, so I understood that they said he was 4 years old. They were just having a casual conversation. And then we sit down on the bus, We're getting ready to take a ride. And Shorty just goes for it. He's like, look, I know where the milk is. Well, being an American, I don't see that like that. So it's like, okay. I mean, I've seen breastfeed in America, but at that time, not that many times. It wasn't a big thing. Everybody wanted to give out of convenience their child Similac or something. But here it is. I'm seeing breastfeeding, and this is a little kid. I'm thinking, wow, okay. Years later, I find out that it's a much more deeper connection the longer a mother breastfeeds a kid. But let's not get crazy. We don't need no adult breastfeeders. Let's get it right with that. So now we're training this child. So if your child is born and you keep them at home, you keep them in. You don't want them to leave. No, I want you to exercise some faith and get up out of my house. I want you to exercise some hope and know that there's jobs out there. And then I want you to exercise love, that you'll understand that I did all of this by love. But either way, I must be passing something on, because if I don't, they die with me in a sense. If you don't pass on that ministry, that work, that writing or something, it dies with you. And there's no progression in the grave. So that's why many of the churches that I do go to at times, many of them don't grow, because they have yet to pass it on. And if they do pass it on, they're still holding on to it. So even though the person is trying to run into the promised land with the promise, you still have people holding you into the wilderness. There are different churches. Some churches birth, some develop. But each one must move someone on, because they have others coming. You must prepare the person to succeed you. You're not going to live forever. They must do the same thing that you do, and they need to multiply after like kind. So you have to multiply, send them out. I talked with a pastor one time, and he just actually said, well, and I'll give this instance. We were dealing with a lot of youth. Somehow there had been a church merger that I was definitely against, because I saw what was coming. When God shows you something, you speak it. But then I had to be like Jeremiah too. I went right on with him, even though I was the only descending vote from that. No, it wasn't to be. I saw what was coming. But then in a matter of months, this pastor tells the three people that have worked so ardently with these youth to build them up, to give them self-esteem, to make them confident. He didn't like the fact that they still were looking to us to pour into him. He was upset. He said, you need to decrease so I can increase. So we got this thing now. You need to decrease so I can increase. That's the spirit of Saul. Saul killed his thousands. David killed his 10,000. Well, I tell you what. Let me train somebody that killed 10,000. I will be glad when the time comes to turn over to them, and I'm going to take credit for it. I taught you most, if not all, of what you know. I'm so thankful that you're taking over, because I could only do 1,000 and you can do 10. But are we thinking about that in churches? How many pastors say, when I die, then you can have it? Well, when you die, it's dead. How many pastors say that, well, I can't use you for X, Y, or Z reason, but, I know that you're anointed. What you just said is that you don't believe that God can raise that person up to assist you, because it may not be up to your expectation. Well, where were you at when God called you, and what qualifications of perfection did you meet that he equipped you and sent you? Whoops. And better still, now that you're there, have you arrived? Are you perfect? These are some questions that we, have to ask as leaders. I won't mention who, but I tell certain leaders very quickly, identify who's your replacement, because life is but a breath. God may place you there just to find that one person and to speak one word so they can be catapulted into their destiny, or he may have you there to develop a group of people. But either way, you have to pass the baton. And you can't pass a baton to somebody to go to where you've never been. They have to take the baton from you, and then they have to go to that next person to pass it on to take it further. But look at what happens. In the end, it's not one person that wins the race, it's the whole team. So we, as kingdom citizens, must understand that we need to prepare to pass batons. Is that not what you do in the natural? You pass the baton to your children. You pass the wisdom to your children. You pass inheritance to your children. And when I say inheritance, I know people want to think about money. No. Wisdom is the best inheritance you can give your kids. Material things, if you put their focus on material things, they're going to be just like the one that's focusing on material things. And I can tell you unequivocally, in my knowledge, to this day of living, and it's been a couple of decades, I ain't going to tell you how many, I've only seen hearses with no U-Hauls behind them. Matter of fact, I don't even think I've seen a hearse with a trailer hitch. Now that I think about it, something to think about. So you can't really take your ministry with you either. You're here to perform that. God put people on this earth, to solve problems. And if you get in the way of them solving a problem because of insecurity, or because of greed, or even because of malice, because I've heard some people say, I will never release that person. Since the earth is the Lord and the fullness thereof, don't you think that he can orchestrate something of Satan's limousine to bring his blessing? Something to think about. This may not look like a blessing to you, but it's a blessing. Outside in miniature, I don't pull credentials and everything. That's a prideful thing. And I find it interesting how, anyway, we have leaders that all of their titles and accolades is in front of their name. This is one thing I think the world got us beat on. We have your name, and then we have accomplishments and titles. You know, even in the Bible, John the Apostle, Paul the Apostle, not Apostle Paul. But now we have compound things. Reverend, Doctor, Bishop, whatever. Bishop, Doctor, Apostle, Prophet, Doctor. I'm not collecting titles. Because when he calls me, I'm not even sure if my name is going to be my first name. I'm not even sure. Why am I not sure? Because he's going to call me and I'm going to answer. But the name that is written in the Lamb's Book of Life may not be the name that I have in this dimension. But I bet y'all know it. But either way, even Jesus prepared us for succession. We're doing someone a great disservice by not allowing them to grow into succession. So when we're laying down there, whether we choose to have a funeral, cremation, burial, seed, whatever, if we have not imparted such wisdom into others, we're going to have a problem. Because we will see the kids that are coming up, now they're confused. So what we have the number now in the United States, we say that the millennials, they don't have no respect, they're not having this, they're not having that, they're not having the third. What have we really given them? I'm a baby boomer, so I got a whole bunch of generations between them and me. But what have we given them? Now, what I can say about millennials that I've spoken to that are grounded in life, if they have a cause, they'll go for it. They're not going to just accept the fact that I say it's so, or 'tis so, or that's just it because it is. No. And we're commanded anyway to have a reason for the hope that we have. We got to give a reason for the hope that we have. But if we don't know about the hope, who is Christ, and we don't know about his word, which is logos, we got issues. We can't explain anything. And we wonder why they go everywhere else. Again, we have not prepared them for succession. So I would encourage everyone, even in your family. I mean, use this principle in all aspects of life. As soon as you get hired for a job, realize that you're gonna be replaced one day if that job stays open. We had a saying in the Army: if you die today in the Army, we just gonna roll you out the chair. We're gonna have somebody replace you before lunch. It's as simple as that. You're only worth the price of your replacement. So you need to make sure that your replacement is priceless. Then that way your legacy lives on through another. I want you to really think about that. Let's really look at, are we equipping someone to come behind us? Or are we making sure that there's a wall that no one can go any further? And when we do that, God brags on us. God really brags on us. And he makes sure that not only are we blessed, but those that are carrying the torch behind us, they're blessed as well. So I want to give another thought to you before you go. You can't lead anybody where you haven't been. It's as simple as that. Oh, Jesus went to heaven. He was in heaven, came to earth, and now he's telling us how to get to heaven. Moses couldn't go into the promised land because he never went there, but he could tell you about the wilderness because he went through it. Joshua and Caleb knew about the promised land, and they came back and they believed God. So the 10 people that didn't believe, they cursed a whole generation of not going into the promised land because they listened to him. Be careful of your words, and remember, you can't take anybody where you haven't been. So for those who love the Lord, make sure you walk with him so you can tell somebody else how to walk. For those who are trying to lead someone to another level, make sure that you've been on that level. I'm considered educated. I can tell someone the ins and the outs, especially the student loans. Oh my God, especially those student loans. I can tell someone about work study. I can tell someone about study habits. I can tell someone about the downfall. I can even tell them how to enjoy yourself on spring break because you're going to need it. You definitely going to need it. But someone has only been to 10th grade and never even went to school then, they're not going to tell me a lot about college. They're not going to tell me a lot about graduate school. And they're definitely not going to tell me a lot about achieving educational excellence if they refuse to learn. So let's think about that. From now on, everyone we speak to, let's look at this as this may be someone I need to train for succession, whether it's in my life or someone else's life. But everyone must be trained to take it further than where we're standing now. God bless you. Just subscribe. I may leave this one open for some comments as well. The reason why I don't leave a lot of, recordings open, because people do get ignorant in social media. They get media muscles or modem muscles, whichever you want to say it. And, they say some real nasty things that may offend other people. Me, it's not going to offend me because I'm not going to kiss you good morning, and neither do I answer to you in my prayer time. So I love you. I love you. I love you. Subscribe to me. Write me. Put in the subject line. Per broadcast or per taping or per something, or one of the titles here, and let's have a dialogue, and then perhaps we can even open up even further with dialogue. Again, this is Dr. Prodigal. Email address dr.e.davisi@gmail.com. Looking forward to hearing from you. God bless you. Have a wonderful day.